All right, we'll call to order the Kingston Springs Board of Commission meeting for December 16th, 2021. Can everyone please rise to face the flag?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, John, could you please call the roll?
Carolyn Clark.
Here.
Sonny Gross.
Here.
Mike Hargis. Absent. Glenn Reddick.
Here.
Bob Stoll.
Here.
We have a quorum and welcome back, Bob. Do we have a motion to approve the November 18th, 2021 public hearing meeting minutes?
Motion to approve.
Do we have a second? Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, motion passes. Item 6 is motion to approve November 18th, 2021 City Commission meeting minutes.
I've got a motion to amend.
Oh. Okay, go ahead.
On the public comment section, which was section 8 where I made comments. The purpose of when I make the announcements, I think thank people, and the people that I thanked weren't included. And the first one was when I made my announcement, I thanked Doug Winters for contacting Senator Roberts for helping the rumble strips become an actuality. And that's not included. I'd like to have my thanks and acknowledgement and recognition of Mr. Winters to be included. And on the second portion of that, where Kingston Road and Fairview, I had actually contacted Williamson County Highway Superintendent Hood, and I actually said that in my remarks about Kingston Road, and it was slated for repaving and striping in 2022.
Okay.
And there's another section.
It should be on. Yes.
Are you have that, Jamie?
Can you speak just a little bit louder?
Sure. I had thanked Doug Winters, community member Doug Winters, that I've been working with for contacting Senator Roberts, and it was due to Doug Winters, community member, for helping get rumble strips placed on East Kingston Springs Road, and I wanted to make sure he got acknowledged for that. And then in the second half of that, I had remarked that I had contacted Williamson County Highway Superintendent Hood about Kingston Road, and he's the one that told me that it was slated for repaving and restriping in 2022. And then another section, 13 on the new business, and we're speaking about the traffic speed mitigation. We went from Mr. Hyatt's section where he spoke, and then we went straight to Chief Ivy, and it kind of omitted the whole section where I spoke, where it was about the survey that I conducted with every member of Mount Pleasant, or every household in Mount Pleasant where I had contacted them. And that got omitted where the majority of people on Mount Pleasant that had contacted me in the response had been against the speed limit being raised to 35 miles per hour. And they all had wanted it, at least with the exception of like 3 of them, had said 30, they wanted it raised to 35 or would be okay with it at 35. But the majority was wanted it left at 30, and that's not in anywhere in the minutes.
All right. Is that it?
The one last section, that same section, the outcome of that whole discussion was not included in this item, which was where we're keeping East Kingston Springs at 35, West Kingston at 30, or West Kingston would increase from 30 to 35. All the residential streets as well as Main Street would be reduced from the current 30 to 20. CC would remain at 30, and Harborview Trail would remain at 30. And the outcome of the whole discussion was omitted also from the minutes. I think it'd be good to have that included.
All right. Anything else? Do we have a motion to approve the meeting minutes as amended?
Motion to approve as amended.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, item 6 is motion to approve the October 21st, 2021 City Commission meeting minutes. Wait, I already got that 7. Sorry, the agenda. There is an item that we need to kind of switch around. Normally, we would have some conference, and then we would have the. Sorry, I'm actually go back on the wrong page here. We need to switch the legal updates to basically we'll put them after reminders, because we need to have attorney-client session there. So we'll do that. And that is it. Do we have a motion to
Motion to approve the agenda as amended.
Do you have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Everyone else say aye?
Aye.
Aye. All right, we're good. Okay, here we go. All right, announcements from commissioners. Actually, I would like to start with this online just because it's been a tremendous week. Everybody knows that we had the tornadoes come through and I was outside of city limits, and our public works, our public safety officers have been doing a whole lot of work out there. Awesome job, guys, getting out there. We have some really great tales of kind of heroism. We were talking about with the lady in Belltown, where some of our first responders were involved in helping out with that situation. And then the town just coming together like it has and helping out. We got Todd Verhoeven back here who spent some time out flipping burgers while his crew was making pizzas to feed people, and that was awesome. I mean, it was kind of funny when Todd got done. He didn't realize, I noticed he had like just grease. He was wearing very khaki pants like I was. He just had grease spattered all down. He was just working so fast he had no idea what he was doing. And then Leslie down at the land has just been a tremendous part of like getting all those people fed, and just a really great group of volunteers. And the county's been doing a great job. It's just really good to see in such tragedy how fast this community comes together and really helps try to make people whole. So that's all I have, and I will start with you. Do you have anything?
Mine's more on a personal note. I just wanted to thank all of my resident friends and neighbors on Ridge Crest who showed up at our doorstep on Sunday morning with their chainsaws to help us out with some down trees.
Oh, great.
And that was great. So thank you.
It takes a village, my gosh, there's been so much from everywhere. It's been fantastic to see this community come together. And the tractor parade, that was just epic.
So good.
That was just epic. The city, you guys just went over and beyond, it felt like, and it was wonderful. It really was.
Randy and the Public Works case.
Thank you all so much.
I had so many people that were just like, this is what we
Yeah.
needed. So it was such a good call to do it.
Amazing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bob?
Just on a personal note, I'd like to thank the mayor and commission for the appointment for the duration of the term.
Yeah.
And look forward to a seamless transition.
I look forward to too, Bob. Welcome back. It's good to have you here. So I appreciate that. The other things that I guess that kind of come along with that I'll go ahead and make as an announcement now is because Bob was on the planning commission, that caused some changes in the planning commission. I've appointed Todd Verhoeven to serve in Bob's position on the planning commission, and Mike Hargis will be stepping in as the member of this board that serves on the planning commission. So congratulations, Todd, and thank you for serving. And once again, Bob, thank you for stepping up again to serve the community. You're always very good about that. All right. Community input and concerns. If you'd like to address the commission, just step up to the podium, state your name and address, and you're free to talk to the commission. And yes, oh gosh, it's been such a crazy week. And Debbie, oh.
Debbie Fitch, I live in 1198 Bluebird Circle. I don't make speeches well, so I had to write it down, but I just wanted to come before you all and tell you that the picture project is finished.
It's beautiful.
I wanted to do this for many years and just didn't have the time to do it. So it's done, and I hope that you all and the public enjoy it as much as I enjoyed putting it together for you. And I also wanted to take a minute, since this is the last board meeting before I officially fully retire. I just wanted to thank you all for the opportunity to work for the town. These last 33 years of employment have been one of my greatest joys. I love Kingston Springs, and I am proud to be part of this team that has made it such a success. And lastly, I just wanted to say it's been an honor to work with each and every one of you. And I admire you, and I thank you for the service to the town. Hope you all have a very Merry Christmas.
We still have to have Debbie back though, of course.
Of course.
for when you're officially, because we still, but.
End of the month.
We're still having you back.
We have to have a party.
We have to have a party. So
Well, I appreciate that, Tom. Thank you.
celebrate you. Thank you so much, Debbie. Debbie Well, you've been here, what, how many years is your total service?
33.
33
In my
years,
33
33 years. The whole time I've been doing anything here for sure by a long shot. And I mean, Debbie, you've been instrumental in my knowledge of municipal government and somebody I can always count on. So I really appreciate it. I'm going to miss your expertise. And you probably still get some phone calls from me.
That's okay. Be happy to have them.
All right. Thank you very much. Would anyone else like to address the commission? We good? Okay, we'll move on to department reports and
I've just got a couple other quick things, Mr. Mayor, and as many others have mentioned, the town of Kingston Springs was relatively unscathed as far as the tornadoes and storms that came through, but right at our doorstep was devastation. So the town's really played a support role with Cheatham County and trying to connect people in need with services, and will continue to do so. As you mentioned, our public safety officers, our public works crews have really stepped up and helped out with the county and those in need, and will continue to do so until there's no more need. So want to commend them for doing that. We do also have TDEC is having a public hearing on January 11th at 5 p.m. in the Activity Center at Burns Park related to the aquatic resources alteration permits, also known as ARAPs, submitted by the Golf Club of Tennessee and the Golf Club of DBI LLC. It's not a town-sponsored public hearing, but it is going to be held at the Burns Activity Center on January 11th. And then the last thing that I had was I was going to commend Debbie for this history project that she's working on. I was able to come in and see it after she finished it today and just blown away. It's beautiful. So she's done a fantastic job. And I was also going to recognize Debbie as her last official meeting as a town employee, but she got to that before me as well. So as usual, she's one step ahead of what I'm doing. So that's all I have.
thank you very much. Legal updates have been moved to the end of the meeting, so we will move on to unfinished business. Item A is a motion to rescind the previously adopted motion approving the obtaining of a 12-year loan and a 3-year loan for the purpose of clarifying loan amounts and separating into 2 separate loan groups for the multimodal safe routes to school projects and the TAP grant project. And I think you've all received the email with this, but yeah, would you like to
So if you remember, we had a lot of discussion about what to do on this last month. Going back through and listening to the meeting, we realized Mr. Hargis had made the motion to approve all 3 grants, even though we did not have the number yet for the TAP grant. And what I think you were trying to clarify, we put the numbers in there for just 2 of the grants. And so we're just trying to clarify. We also have been giving preferred resolutions by our lender, by Tennessee Bond, Municipal Bond Fund. So you have in your packet where once you rescind what happened last month, we'll do a resolution approving the loan for the first 2, multimodal and safe routes to schools, one for the city portion, one for the state portion, just as you contemplated last time. It's just further clarifying.
All right, well, first off, do we have a motion?
Motion.
Do we have a second? Second. Any discussion, further discussion?
Is this a discussion of the resolutions or just the rescission?
This is a motion
Yeah,
to
we're
rescind.
rescinding last month so that we could clean it up and clarify it this month.
A motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? All right, should we roll call?
Carolyn Clark,
Yes.
Tony Gross,
Yes.
Mike Hargis absent, Glenn Remick,
Yes.
Bob Stover.
Yes.
All right, motion passes. Item B is a motion to approve resolution 21-015, authorizing the issuance of interest-bearing transportation improvement capital outlay note from the Tennessee Municipal Bond Fund in the amount not to exceed $370,000 attributable to the town for the multimodal and safe routes school grant projects at an interest rate of 2.25%, authorizing the mayor to execute the capital outlay note and other loan and closing docs, and approving the expenditure of the closing costs related to the loan not to exceed $500.
Jump in
Yeah,
on
go
this.
ahead, go ahead.
You're gonna notice on this one and the next one, the interest rates are slightly different than what we talked about. That raised a flag with me too. And apparently, what this is it is to be able to execute notes up to that amount. Right now, the interest rates are at what we talked about last month. If we don't draw on this prior to February
16th, I believe.
February 16th, they anticipate rate adjustment, which given what came out, from the Fed today, is probably a pretty good indicator that there may be an adjustment rate. So basically, they don't lock in the rate. It depends on when we start issuing these individual draws, if you will, these notes. So you cannot go over the 2.25. It gives a maximum cap, but that's why it's different and above what you talked about last month. It's same thing on the next one. 1.83, that's why it's a different percentage.
So it can't go over 2.5 on the first one.
Correct, and I read that correctly.
Yeah.
It cannot go over
But
2.25. Yes, and then same thing for the next one, it cannot go over 1.83. And this gives the mayor the authority, if we draw it all out at one time, issue a note for that, or, whoever purchases that, draws it out, issue a note for that, or if it's an individual series, it just kind of depends, but there is some flexibility. We're not having to come back to you all every single time to let the mayor authorize, or to authorize the mayor to sign a note every single time.
Motion,
Yeah, the one question I just had on this first resolution is that in the second resolution, the multimodal project and the safe routes to schools are named in the first paragraph. Does that need to be spelled out anywhere in the first paragraph of the first resolution as well? Or does it make a difference?
Is it in the first whereas?
Yeah, it's in the second, it's in the first whereas of the second resolution, not the second first one.
So you're moving on item C. Correct.
Yeah, I'm just comparing the two. Yeah, on the second resolution, it's got the grant proceeds from state grants, the multimodal and safe routes to schools. And the first one doesn't delineate, that's what it's for, and I was wondering if we need to delineate that as well.
I don't think it really makes that much difference, Commissioner. These are actually the format that they sent to us and asked us to use. I went through it to make sure it hit all of our marks. I don't know that, if you wanted to put that in there, I don't think that would alter too much, but these are the forms that they sent to us. So it does talk about it being sidewalks for the town. Of course, they have to establish, long-term use of those projects, et cetera. So I think we're okay using it like it is.
The other question I had was on the second of, I'm sorry, it's on the second resolution. I'll wait till we get there.
motion to approve?
Do we have a second?
Second.
All right, is there any further discussion? Anything else? Bob, good. We have a motion and a second. John, should we call the roll?
Carolyn Clark,
Yes.
Tony Gross,
Yes.
Mike Hargis absent, Glenn Remick,
Yes.
Bob Stoll.
Yes.
Item C is motion to approve resolution 21-016, authorizing the issuance of an interest-bearing transportation improvement capital outlay note from the Tennessee Municipal Bond Fund in the amount not to exceed $997,000 attributable to the town of Kingston Springs for the multimodal and safe routes to school grant projects at an interest rate of 1.83%, authorizing the mayor to execute the capital outlay note and other loan and closing docs, and approving the expenditure of the closing costs related to the loan not to exceed $500.
And this one, I'm sorry, there's a little bit different on this one than your caption on your agenda. This is a interest rate not to exceed 2%. I think 1.83 was the percentage we talked about last month.
time. Okay.
And this one's not to exceed 2%. Is
Okay, so we'll restate that as not to exceed 2%.
that your question, Commissioner?
No, I'm sorry. My question was just on the economic life of the project and the second whereas it's 12 years. Is this second one 3 years?
So this is the one where we are getting it on that 3-year term, but because it's the same project that we just in our prior resolution said the economic life is 12 years,
Match it up.
we're matching.
Okay, thank you.
All right, do we have a motion?
Motion.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? No, Bob, Lynn, Carolyn, everyone's good? All right, John, would you please call the roll?
Carolyn Clark,
Yes.
Tony Gross,
Yes,
Mike Hargis absent, Glenn Remick,
Yes.
Bob Stoll.
Yes.
motion's approved. New business is first reading of ordinance 21-013, amending ordinance 21-006 of 2021-2022 budget.
The specific items are listed in the ordinance, and basically they're all related to the town receiving funds from insurance or awarded grants or the American Rescue Plan, and then allocating those funds to the different departments for use.
Is the first one, that says it's coming out of the fund balance, is that also on FEMA monies that we received? For the cleanup of debris?
Oh, cleanup of the part of the parks debris, that is actually coming out of the fund balance, and because it is money that is not budgeted, however, is money that needs to be expended to clean up storm debris from the March flooding. It is money that we anticipate receiving back from a combination of FEMA and state reimbursement. But the funds have to be expended first, and then we get reimbursement from them.
Okay, so we pay out fund balance now, we're gonna get something back from.
Exactly.
That's correct.
Gotcha.
The work had to be done
Gotcha.
regardless. It was practically declared an emergency in March. All right. All right, do we have a motion?
Motion.
All right, John, could you please call the roll?
Carolyn Clark,
Yes.
Tony Gross,
Yes.
Mike Hargis, absent, Glenn Rennick,
Yes.
Bob Stoll.
Yes.
Motion passes. All right, item B is discussion of staff direction for spring 2022 road paving projects.
We, as we've discussed before, we are putting together a list of road projects that we will have for the next 5 to 10 years. That project's not been completed yet, but we have identified several roads that are areas that are in need of repair. Two of these projects are the parking lot at Burns Park that now include the walking tracks, as well as Mount Pleasant Road between Mary Log and downtown. Both of these projects have a similar cost, strictly an estimate from our engineering firm of about $170,000. There's a little over $201,000 budgeted for paving this fiscal year. We've discussed repaving the lot at Burns Park. And since we, for the last couple of years, since we've discussed that, the walking trails that are paved at the park also need to be resurfaced. So staff would recommend that the repaving of Burns Park lot and the trails would be the selected paving project for this fiscal year, and would request direction from the board or permission from the board if they so choose to allow us to initiate work with Collier Engineers to request bids.
On this paving of the walking path, so it's everything's out, I assume it's outlined in yellow.
Yeah, everything that's basically everything
So
that's
why does-
asphalt now.
Why did we not look at least, I mean, maybe it's just because of cost, but you know, that entire path around that park is getting to a point, especially on some sides where there's like some trees. I mean, maybe we can just go in and fill it, but I think that the track around basically the soccer fields is.
Oh, yes.
It does include that. Okay,
That does
okay.
include it. My,
It says 3,000 linear feet. I didn't know if that was the entire patch. So, and then there's just these yellow lines here. So, oh, that's only
No, that's-
500.
this was
That's a drive. Okay, I got you.
so basically everything that's currently asphalt at the park right now would
Will
be
get
resurfaced.
resurfaced. Okay, that's very good. Yeah. There's some spots on one side where you could trip if you were not looking.
Yes.
Okay, very good. And then the option 2, you can go ahead if you'd like to.
Option 2 would be from West Kingston, or I'm sorry, Mount Pleasant Road from Mary Log down what we'll call Schoolhouse Hill down to the downtown area. It is something that does need to be resurfaced. It does have some potholes and some alligators, but we can patch those potholes. It is certainly something that we would want to put on the short list. Another road that we have considered to be on the short list is Harpeth Trail, but we're waiting for the Safe Routes to School project to tear that up before we resurface it as well. So looking right now as the paths that we've taken, these 2 are the main projects we're looking at, but feel that just because of overall use and need, the parking lot at Burns Park would be number 1. Mount Pleasant Road would be number 2.
Now, I think at least my inclination is to go to the park too, and especially the walking path. We have lots of seniors that walk that path, and I think that you know, keeping them from tripping and falling and so on, that's a pretty important thing to take into consideration, and parking lot has never been resurfaced, correct? That's the original parking lot, so.
I feel, yes, the parking lot at the Burns Park is utilized by far more citizens than the back way to downtown.
I'll be the voice of government. I think just from Chief Ivy's thing with 1,500 cars going through down Mount Pleasant shows that road is in use more so than I think the number of people that go to Burns Park as.
So, yeah,
This is just a link past where most people turn going down Mary Log, so it's like down to where it
Right.
winds down by the schoolhouse.
Right.
Like it's like you to like me and 5 other people.
And I realize that, and I think I have that on my proposal for Ridgecrest Drive as a sub-proposal was doing this portion of the road too. And I just think more people utilize that as opposed to the park, and I think the park, we will have put over $300,000 in that park for, the last year and a half, and I just think that there's other safety issues with people driving in the rain, like Tony just mentioned, especially on that part of the road on Mount Pleasant where people, you can't see on the road, there's no markings. And I would just go for what benefits more people and more community members for as far as driving and safety than I would for the park. And also too, I think the thing that I took issue with a little bit on John on here, are potential add-ons would be Ridgecrest Drive. And I know Ridgecrest Drive, we had talked about doing that September.
Mhm.
And just kind of waiting for any kind of proposal like this to get that done.
I think you were discussing striping.
Yes, we were discussing striping.
Striping, not resurfacing, correct?
Yeah, I mean,
Right,
This is resurfacing.
Yes, but
Right,
and
I
we were
remember
also
that.
waiting, we'd gotten a general quote for striping on Ridgecrest, and in speaking with the striping folks, it would be a lot less expensive if the striping and additional areas of town were associated with a project that they were out to do, as in a parking lot or a road. So we were waiting to see if we were going to have a paving project this fiscal year, so we could do some additional striping on Ridgecrest and even CC Road. We've had several requests for striping around the edges of CC Road, especially going up the hill, that we could do at a reduced price rather than having the company out here just to do striping.
yeah, I was just wondering if there's more striping projects that could be combined. Like I know this West Kingston Road out here to Trimble Creek is horrible at night. And I know Patterson, it wasn't, that's been it was done, I think, 3 years ago, and there's nothing there any longer, and that's a windy road in the dark and in the rain. So it cannot just striping projects be combined to do that?
I think that was what the point was, is when, that's why we're looking at those dates to do striping, because the company that would be doing whatever paving project would be here at the same time and able to do striping at the same
Right,
time.
I understand
Yeah.
that. I'm just wondering why striping projects couldn't be all combined as one project. If you have like 6 striping projects, why wouldn't that give us a better deal?
It could if
It could.
That's my point.
But I mean, they'll have to, presumably, any of these projects will have to be striped as well, and they'll be out at the same time. And I don't know, I mean, we talked about weather and stuff, so, there's certain times when they do road work, and in the winter, for instance, they don't usually do asphalt pouring because they don't make asphalt in the winter. So. All right, well, we had some discussion. Bob, what are your thoughts?
So on the Burns Park, is that a mill and overlay, John?
It would definitely be an overlay. I'm not sure, just because the parking lot has deteriorated to a point, I'm not sure that they would need a mill.
Okay.
And then typically that's also a higher traffic, right? I mean, parking lots are less likely to be milled than roads and higher traffic roads.
And it does include the striping of the spaces.
It's only binder on the part.
It's never been paid, it's
never
just
been
binder,
Oh, really? Okay.
and it was what was originally put in 2003.
I believe, Burns Park, it's utilized more on us, for example, last Sunday night than Mount Pleasant Road between Marylog and downtown would in a week. Which is far more traffic in Burns Park than any of the side road. And side road I just drove on tonight, again, it's like 3 potholes.
Now,
Otherwise, it looks pretty solid, except for a little bit of a drop off on the edges, which, or asphalt on top of that would just exceed that. Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, I run this section of road and it's actually relatively safe because you don't have to meet any cars till you get.
till you get to top of Mary
Then
Lane,
you get to
and
top
then
and then you,
you meet cars.
and then you meet cars
Otherwise-
and you're usually running the ditch, so. All right, well, then I guess we need a motion to direct staff to get bids for a project. So do we have a motion
Motion
for what?
for bids on the project for Burns Park
Option
parking lot,
one, okay.
option one.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All right.
Clarification, is, do you want that to also include the striping for various roads?
Oh, yeah, so I would assume that was kind of, yeah, so we do need to make sure that, right? We want to
Yeah, so
include
similar to
striping
what we did
for-
with Brush Creek, we could do, the primary project would be Burns Park. We would have add-ons that could be striping of multiple roads around town that we would like to, and then bring that information back to the commissioners once we receive bids for direction on, do we do the main project and the add-ons, or just the main project, just sort of depending on how much money we've got, where the costs fall at.
Okay,
Could we have those bifurcated before we vote on this stuff to find out? If we vote on Burns Park and vote yes, and then the striping doesn't get included, then
So I'm not understanding what information you're like.
can we lock that in before we vote on this, that there will be striping projects associated with this?
I think we're just directing John to go get bids, right?
Yeah.
At this point, we're not.
so those bids would come back, I presume, including striping and not including striping, and then we would
Right.
accept
And
bids
then
based
we'll
on that
vote.
point. So this is just to go get bids.
Directing.
So, but we would need to decide which project that we're looking
Right,
at,
really.
so.
Trying to stay under the budget of $200,000. Yes.
I mean, the striping is obviously needed. I've had several friends complain about West Kingston Springs roads are here, so yeah.
Yes.
It's
Priority.
definitely something that we need to have, and that, you know, included. And we seek out these bids. So I guess the motion should possibly be, we would like to amend this motion to include, to have them seek, to authorize John to get bids on option one, and also striping of Ridgecrest, Patterson, West Kingston Springs Road. What else?
CC Road.
CC Road.
Yes, good.
And the other side of perhaps not Pleasant as
Yeah.
well.
Oh, the down the hill on Mount Pleasant here. Okay, yeah.
This is second amended as well.
So I guess I
Yes.
I just made that new
First,
motion.
okay.
Yes, second.
You've amended your first, you're amending your second.
Second, okay. Then, yeah, Glenn amended that.
I did.
There you go. Good job.
Thank you.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. John, could you just call the roll, I guess, on this one with you?
Carolyn Clark,
Yes,
Tony Gross,
Yes,
Mike Hargit, absent Glenn Ray,
Yes.
Todd Stover.
Yes.
all right. All right, item C is a discussion of codes enforcement appeals process sponsored by Commissioner Clark, and I've also invited the planner and the codes enforcement officer to weigh in on this issue. So go ahead, Commissioner Clark.
I discussed with attorneys Martha Brooke Perry and Jennifer No back in August, I think, and I had brought up some issues regarding the appeals process. And I think that, as you can see in the documents here, the appeal or the letter of violation does not have any notice of appeal in there. And from my reading of our ordinances, it says it shall inform the property owner of the right to appeal. And so I was concerned about that. And then I was looking up the IPMC codes, and that also states that the written notice shall inform the property of the right to appeal. And the appeal letters that were going out for notice violations did not include that. And I wanted to see if that could be fixed, basically, for lack of a better word. And the second issue that had come up with was the appeals process itself. We have two different regulations. One is the property regulations, and that rescinds the right to appeal, from my reading of it, And through the IPMC codes, you have to have an appeal process. And so I was wondering how that fit in with our ordinance, which also says that we can appeal it with the judge. And our ordinance say appeal the violation with the judge, and Judge Maxey was a judge at that time. So my question was, how do you appeal it? And I was told, I think Armstrong told me that we just write "I appeal" on a piece of paper, and that would suffice as an appeal. And so I was helping the Pattersons with that, and they did that. And then the appeal declination came back 2 days later saying that we didn't have right to appeal. And then we got a notice, a letter saying that we had appeal, the application for appeal was done to the Construction Board of Appeals in Kingston Spring. And as far as I knew, the Construction Board of Appeals reviews stop work orders. So I was unclear as how that worked as well. So I think there needs to be some clarification as to if we want people to have an appeals process, because on one hand, we don't have an appeals, the other hand, it's not clear who they appeal to. One says the hearing, or the person issuing it, or the judge. And I think sometimes too, if you appeal to the person that has issued the violation itself, that just doesn't seem like it's going to be effective appeal for someone, because you're appealing to the same person. It's like going back to the same judge who issued the finding and then appealing it to the same judge. So I just think we need some clarifications as to our ordinances and what we want to have and how we want people to be able to appeal any notices of codes violations. And I did an appeals process form to see if we all want to adopt something like that, that can be given out to people and have available to them online to be able to appeal it. And so that was it. I just think we need more clarification, because it's just not clear in the notice of violation letter that has no appeal process. And then this application for appeal that goes to the Construction Board of Appeals for a codes violation. That doesn't make sense to me.
I actually, because after reading your comments and the packet, I invited the city planner to kind of help explain some of this to us. So first off, what is the appeals process, Sharon? Could you go through that with us? And or what's the process, basically the enforcement process, and how should we change it? Or should it be changed from what we've got going right now?
Do you want me to address the two specific letters that were sent?
Yes, please.
Okay. The first letter, as you know, was the habitation of an unlawful structure. Under the city's code, Title 13, unlawful structures are deemed unlawful. There is not an appellate process for that in Title 13 of the city's code, because if the structure is unlawful, you cannot occupy it regardless. So that was discussed, I believe, in the previous meeting. So there is no appellate process other than if they want to discuss it with a code enforcement officer, they can. The second letter that was introduced tonight has to do with inoperable cars on a piece of property. That particular property is in violation of a standing court order. So there is no administrative appellate process for that. It goes back to the court that issued the order, which in this particular case is the Chancery Court. It's not the municipal court. That was issued by Chancery Court in Cheatham County, Tennessee. So when there's an alleged violation there, it's a violation of a court order that was issued against that property or in benefit of that property, depending on how you read it. That goes back to the Chancery Court. It does not fall within our administrative appeal process, nor does it fall within our Title 13, because it was issued by the Chancery Court of Cheatham County, not by this jurisdiction. So I'll be happy to answer questions. And the city manager and I and Mr. Armstrong have a meeting on Monday to address formally putting an appellate process in the code book. There is not a formal appeals process or mechanism in the book now. The letters that were generated for these two properties and all the letters that have been generated to notify owners of violations of property maintenance code were generated in iWorks. There is no mechanism for us to update iWorks. That has to be done through the company. We have submitted samples of those letters, and they are under review, and when iWorks deems it timely, they'll include them in those.
I guess I don't understand the
And I
lack of the appellate.
apologize, Mr. Clark, I'm very hard of hearing.
The lack of the appellate process, how does it rectify itself with our ordinances that says you shall include a right to appeal in that? And the IPMC code, it says you shall. So how does that square off?
It squares off in two ways. If you look through Title 13, habitation of an unlawful structure is separate from some of the other codes. And as it's stripped out of Title 13, it addresses it by type of violation. As an example, if you don't mow your yard, you're contacted, you're asked to mow your yard. The city established a 12-inch height for grass in your yard. If it gets above 12 inches, then you are met with on the property and asked to mow the grass. If you don't respond to that, a formal letter is sent. And if a formal letter is sent for that, then we would notify them that they have the ability to appeal. Their appellate process is before the same judge that would hear the case if they're cited into court. It delays the process, so from my perspective, it visits more hardship on the applicant than it does help, but they are entitled to that appeal. We had another case where a letter was sent out and the appellate process was advised to the applicant for habitation of a property where they have lived for some period of time without any intervention from code. Their assumption and their predication for that was turned over to an attorney. That attorney was in communication with our attorney. Our attorney then responded to that. In the case of the automobiles that are inoperable, that violator has an attorney. I have been in communication with his attorney. His attorney has advised him he is in violation of the court order on the property and advised him to comply because it was issued by Chancery Court after a full trial. So that's not staff alleging a violation, that's notification that you're in violation of an order issued by a superior court to municipal court. In the case of an unlawful structure, it's a life safety issue, so it doesn't fall under an appellate structure because it is a life safety issue. If something happens to that resident living in an unlawful structure, liability would fall to the city for failure to enforce. So I hope that answers at least some of your concerns. But we are looking at Title 13. There seems to be some incongruity between Title 12 and Title 13. We have the ones that were given, and we're trying to work within the ones that we're given now, but there needs to be some better structure to the letters. We've been working on those for quite some time. iWorks does not allow us any latitude to draft or edit or revise any of those documents. They're created by default and uploaded based on the code. And as you noted in your information that you submitted to the commission tonight, the town has the ability to revise code. So what's in the property maintenance code will not always be the same as what's in Title 12 or Title 14, because code, just like building code or any other code that's published by ICC, they're a council, they're not a regulatory agency. So they make code suggestions for building code, property maintenance code, fire code, a number of other codes. It's almost like an a la carte system that cities can choose to adopt the entire slate, or they can make modifications to it based on what they feel to be the local circumstances. And I think that's been the case in Kingston Springs for every new adoption of code, every new revolution that comes along. I think there have been modifications to the existing codes based on what the commission chooses to do. So in those particular cases, appeal processes are not available to the applicants other than they can argue their case with the code enforcement officer. If there's a particular circumstance where they need some extra time, but there's no formal appellate process for the occupation of an unlawful structure because it's deemed in your ordinance and by city code as being illegal. So there's no court that can modify that as well. And the other is a court order that we don't have the latitude here to.
I think, yeah. More so, I'm concerned with the lack of appellate procedure that we have.
I'm sorry.
The property maintenance codes that got rescinded. There is no appeal. It was rescinded and replaced with nothing. So that concerns me that people don't have something to fall back on. And the other code is 13-107 or whatever it is. It says the right to appeal the findings to the issuing officer or to the municipal judge. And I just think there needs to be clarification for that.
I would concur that that needs to be clarified. Also needs to be clarified within the documents that are issued in the city's database system, which is something the city's working to cure. So I don't disagree with you. At the time the question was asked in the one case, we had no mechanism other than you're allowed to appeal before the municipal judge. If you're already cited, that negates your appeal. You're given a window of time to do that. That response time is 20 days. You don't respond in writing. And when you respond in writing, there are also rules within the property maintenance code for how that's done. You can't simply say, I disagree with you. You have to have a legal basis to mount that, just as you do with the Board of Zoning Appeals, the Board of Construction Appeals, or any other quasi-judicial review process. So stating that I don't want to comply is not the basis of an appeal. The appeal has to be rooted somewhere within the code itself. So I concur with you. That's the reason for the meeting on Monday, is to clarify some of these issues. And it's the reason why letters have not been generated in a bit. We're attempting to work with property owners to just get them to voluntarily comply, rather than do that, which we do in every single code case that we address.
Is there any thought to having the appeal go to a hearing examiner who's independent?
I'm so sorry. It's very.
Is there any
difficult
thought
for me.
like to the appeal process going to a hearing examiner who's an independent person and not someone?
Yes, the independent person in almost every single code case having to do with property maintenance, that appellate process is going to go to the municipal judge. And they can allege an error in the code enforcement officer's position of the violation. In other words, let's say that the code enforcement officer says you have, and I think the statute defines it, or the code defines it as junk and debris or trash and debris. So maybe they're alleging that you're making an error in your determination they have trash and debris in their yard. So if you're alleging an error, you would go to the municipal court judge. They would put that in writing and request that hearing before the municipal court judge to allege an error in the violation. If there's not an error, if there's actually trash and debris in your yard, he's going to deny that appeal.
And that's what's not spelled out in our codes now.
Pardon?
That's what's not spelled out in our codes now. How
Right,
would you do
that's
that?
what needs to be in the letter, and the basis for appeal, I think, although it's not required to be included, over the years, multiple people have filed appeals. When they get to court, if they don't have a legal basis to mount that appeal, it's immediately just struck down and they've wasted all that time and energy. In addition to that, there's no mechanism within the Title 13 that stops the collection of fines during that period. It's only stayed for the 10 days that it takes to get the hearing put together. So in some cases, it mounts an additional hardship on the property owner because those fines accrue during that period. So we tend to approach this with zoning violations and code enforcement exactly the same way. If you can get voluntary compliance, do that, because it's the least insult to the property owner to do it that way. If you can't get compliance that way, you send an official notice of violation listing the violation, and you are correct. The appellate process, if there is one, should be included in that letter. In those two particular letters,
Right.
It's not available. If that doesn't work, then you cite them to court and they go before a hearing. If no forward movement has been made, it's standard for the judge to just grant the order that you're asking for. That in turn can visit even more hardship. As an example, let's say that it's inoperable vehicles. At that point, the code enforcement officer would request an order to remove them. Then the city has to store them. Then they're going to charge them a storage fee, which is also in the code for those vehicles. If they don't claim them within a specified number of days, they're sold. Proceeds after the city collects its cost go back to the property owners. The same for a dilapidated house. Hardship. Does that somewhat answer your questions? But there will be a meeting on Monday to determine within the appropriate sections of code where an appellate process is. I'm not real fond of the way that Tennessee statutes are written, but we don't have any control over the way the state frameworks this, to appeal before the exact same judge that's going to hear the case. If you don't have a very strong and compelling case, is simply going to increase the pressure on the property.
I know some of our codes, it says something like a hearing examiner. Who is the hearing examiner?
I'm sorry,
Who is the hearing examiner?
the hearing examiner, there's an administrative hearing officer that the town has, but you will notice in the code, not only in the International Property Maintenance Code, but also within the city's code, that that particular process is only used when appropriate. And in none of the cases that have come forth in the last few months, we've been existing longstanding violations in a lot of cases, or that we're responding to a complaint that is received from someone. We don't ride the streets and look for code violations. There were 29 code cases on the books that needed to be resolved. But the administrative hearing officer's sole responsibility is to determine whether or not there's a violation. So they're in the exact same circumstance they are if they go before the judge. So when a case involves property, the administrative hearing officer may be solely stated completely up to date on property rights, amendment, due process. They may not. Some of them are laymen. They don't know the judicial process. So that's what administrative. Again, that's based on an allegation. It's not, the violation does not exist.
I think that my whole reason for was wanting to protect people and give them an appeals process. And I know sometimes when they appeal to the board of zoning appeals, it's onerous on them as well, because it's $150. And I think that would be good to revisit that as well, because that makes it a fine basically for someone to appeal.
Board of Zoning Appeals is under a different structure. It's
But
under
that's-
chapter
that's
13, but I mean, the
That's
Board of
what we're
Zoning
doing.
Appeals hears things that are tied directly to the land.
Right.
They do not hear extenuating circumstances from applicants. They do not hear hardship. They're prohibited from hearing that. They're also tied by the zoning ordinance itself. So if it's a zoning violation, let's say that someone began work without a permit. There is no latitude within the Board of Zoning Appeals that grants them the authority by state statute to cure that.
I'm sorry, I think I got off on the wrong foot by using the word zoning, construction appeals. That was $150 charge, and I think that's a detriment, or not detriment, it's a deterrent for people to actually file for an appeal.
Well, you will find that the Board of Zoning Appeals is also mentioned in the Property Maintenance Code. That's because code violations are somewhat split into two different areas. One is a direct on-the-ground property violation, which is trash, debris, parking in an inoperable park. A zoning violation is a totally different structure. That has to do with the land, not the actions of an individual. So they're split into two particular routes of compliance for that reason. Any other questions for us?
What I would also just, this board is able to waive those fees in certain situations and has waived those fees in certain situations. So that is correct. I mean, we.
Well, actually, this board cannot waive the fees. The judge can waive
The judge, okay, the judge.
but the board cannot. The purpose of property maintenance standards and the way it's structured is to, one, relieve the city commission of the burden of hearing those cases. Because the municipal court or administrative hearing officer, or if it's a zoning violation, it's a chancery issue. The location of inoperable cars is a zoning issue. It's not a code issue, even though it's in that structure. So you don't have the authority to waive the fee. So what we want to do is to resolve the issue as quickly as we possibly can. Your regulations now mirror the state statute. It's $50 per day per incident, which could be, as a matter of fact, I started to bring an article tonight and then I forgot it. In a small town close to where I live, in Deerville, Kentucky, they have a board that they send their code enforcement cases to. That's where the citizen goes when they're cited. There's a front page article in last week's paper. A property owner has been lawfully assessed with $40,000 in fines for garbage he refuses to remove from his property. That was done by a citizen board of review because they're following what the state statute tells them to do. It doesn't say that you may assess the fine, it says you shall assess the fine. So this gentleman who has debris in his yard now has a $40,000 lien on his house, which they will now within a year auction off in order to collect not only that, but the cost of prosecution. I don't think we want to go that route in this town. I don't think that that's an appropriate response to a code issue. It never is. But on the other side of every code discussion, there's the property owner, and then there's the neighbor. And for the code enforcement officials of your city, you're trapped in the middle of those two discussions. One wants it solved, the other one wants to not resolve it or have it go away. So you're stuck in the middle. We don't have the latitude to lay on one side or the other of that discussion. We're supposed to be impartial. We can't do them on a case-by-case basis. We can't do them on predicated on any other factor other than is it a violation or is it not? And we respond to complaints. That's what we do. Any other questions from you?
Mike, did you want to say something? I noticed you were.
No, I noticed that also in part of your package, there was a concern with the 10-day window. In each case, just so you know, by the time I would get to, and we still got to flesh this out with the city manager, and this part of Monday's discussion, but we started out with my approach on the day I was hired. And my approach is that generally you can talk to somebody and they'll do the right thing. Occasionally you can talk to somebody and they just tell you, just go away. I don't even want to talk to you. So that's fine. Then you have to deal with it another way. But the concern with getting a letter and the letter says you got 10 days to solve this. By the time that person gets a letter, you're 30, 40 days into it, generally anyone, because you've already talked to them once or twice and tried to convince them and said, you know, if you don't do this, I'm gonna have to send you a letter. And then if I send the letter, then it starts a clock that makes things start happening. So just so you know, it's not one of these deals where I just mail out a letter and it occurs that way, but the process has not been yet defined. When I took the job, there was no, you sit down at this desk and open the standard operating procedure. Here's how we do it in Kingston Springs. You have the regulations and you can go by that, and then they're trying to use a relatively new system to Kingston Springs, iWorks, and it didn't have much capability for codes at all. So we're trying to design this so we can get it put in there where it is something that's a good tool for you.
Yeah, defining would be good.
Okay, does that help any?
Thank you.
Yes.
John, can I be a part of that meeting on Monday, just as a representative of the people?
You're always welcome. I would prefer that it might be easier if we laid some ground rules with the planner and I, and then brought you on board, if that would be permissible.
Okay. I just feel like it's, you know, the people should be involved in the planning more than just staff.
Of course. So is it permissible for the planner and I to lay some groundwork and then bring you in?
Sure,
That's all.
sometime this week.
Yes.
I mean, I think that the problem anytime you do that is, I mean, at that point, this board meets as a board here. We couldn't all go to that meeting because we would violate the sunshine law as soon as we did that. So we can't necessarily, you know what I mean? So as soon as I walk in that meeting, we violated the sunshine law.
Right, but you met with everybody about the speed limits.
Yeah. I'm the mayor. So I find that could be problematic. In that sense, it's not a board meeting, it's a staff meeting. So. All right. All right, item B is discussion on proposal of the town sponsored chipping. And what I would also, I guess, add to that is we will have a discussion when that stuff, when this appeal process is brought back, and we can have a discussion here. That's where we have a discussion as commissioners. Right here, that's where we're doing it now.
Right.
It's not
Where the people can actually observe
where
it.
the people can observe it.
No, I
Whereas,
agree with
whereas,
that.
where, you know, staff meetings occur and those things are brought to these meetings and then we put input on those things here. But when
Again,
when you're in that meeting, the people can't observe that meeting with you in there, so you're not the people in that sense.
Right.
So,
But again, I bring up the speed limit meeting that you were involved with, without the rest of us.
That's true. Also the mayor, so.
But you don't hold any more power for the rest of us.
We'll move on to item D, which is discussion of the proposed town sponsored chipping brush removal services, brought by Commissioner Hall.
This one was an idea of Cynthia Collins, who brought this to me, and she just asked why we didn't have anything like Pegram as far as chipping service. And so I looked up what Pegram has, and they have it twice a year, and then the chipper program, and Marilyn Allen says they also have it just on an as-needed basis, and he said that it works really well. And they do it twice a year, they have the dates all lined up online, and I think every town by us has this: Murfreesboro, Fairview, Brentwood, Mount Juliet, Laverne, Gallatin, Dixon, they all have this, and a lot of them have leaf removal services too, which I think if we decided to do something like this, to start out small and just have the chipping service for the brush removal, it would be good just to kind of mirror what Pegram does. And I think this would just be a good use of tax money that people could actually get a service. I think we offer a lot of activities, but we don't offer much services.
Just,
I mean, it's kind of,
that's insulting.
I mean, I feel like staff does offer a lot of
That's so
services. I
insulting.
really, I wouldn't say that about the staff.
I'm not talking about, I'm talking about like this, shipping services,
Yeah.
leaf pickup, recycle. There's no services like that we do.
That need to be specified.
Everyone be thin-skinned about this.
Oh, no. I'm just saying, I mean, we have public safety officers that go out and do public safety. We have a parks department that does offers park services. We have a road, we have public works that maintains our roads and
That's our
sidewalks.
staff. That's staff. That's not specialized services that an outside provider is going to come and give us.
So you mean
this is-
hiring? other
Yes,
people,
this is-
right?
Yeah,
So-
man.
So for instance, when we contracted mowing out, that would have been an outside service, but now the staff is doing it. It's different, I guess. I don't disagree with this. I think this is possibly a good idea.
I think it's great, but the word.
I just understand
Glenn's experience.
Glenn's point as far as what that says to staff, so. Okay, go.
Yeah,
Well,
I'd like to just put my two.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's okay.
Sorry.
we have no, we actually, we would have to suspend the rules and all that stuff.
Oh, so
We're still working on stuff here.
Yeah.
We're still working on it.
Okay.
I'm so sorry.
What were you gonna say, Bob?
I think we need to suspend Roberts if we can do that, right?
Correct.
Which if someone would like to, that's fine. But we can just, go ahead. I do agree with Glenn that on what you were making as a point there, but. Go
Once we
ahead.
get past
Let's
that
discuss the,
sentence.
that sentence I had it highlighted this. So chipping shredding.
Okay. I didn't know that was going to cause such umbrage with everyone. It was not meant to be a slight against city staff. It was meant outside services that we provide, like Pegram and all these other towns that don't do it. They contract out to do it. That's what I meant. No slight meant whatsoever. So in any event, I think this would be really a good benefit for us to have. I've gotten contacted by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 people. I sent out 30 contacts to people. I've had nothing negative. Everyone thought this was a great idea. One person thought it was a great idea, just didn't want taxes raised. So, but I think at the cost, as you can see, if you read it, is only $1,800 a day for equipment and services. And Mr. Newcomb says that probably would take 3 staff or 2 staff and their chipper And he figured he could get 40, 50 homes a day, but if they're all on one street, of course, that's gonna up the number of homes that they could do. And we could also contract with them to use the mulch. We could use the mulch in the park, we could use the mulch on our paths over at Challenge Trail. And we could also maybe consider doing this if it becomes popular during Christmas trees and collecting that, because that's how Radnor Lake, they collect all the Christmas trees and mulch and fill their paths in that way. This week, thank you, Cynthia.
Thank you. All right, is there any discussion? Bob, what are your thoughts?
You know, I think we need to figure out where the money's gonna come from first. It's $1,800 a day and $40,000 a day, where's it gonna come?
No, it's one day, a one-day service.
$1,800 a day for 40 houses.
Or more, they could probably get more than that, John.
So,
How many
what's
houses are signing up for it? We just don't
Yeah,
know.
we'd
So
have to.
We estimate about 1,200 houses in Kingston Springs.
1,200 total, so. So to provide that service for everybody, do the math, what would that?
30 days.
$48,000.
$48,000. Okay. What, do we know what Pegram ends up spending, out of curiosity?
I've been in contact, he hasn't responded
They
yet.
haven't responded yet,
For the number. So I figured, they said it's really popular over there, and I'm assuming that Pegram, since they have the same population as us, pretty much they're not spending that much money and doing it.
Yeah, I like the idea, the cost, we would probably want to maybe explore the cost and find out what the other municipalities are paying for it. I don't necessarily have a problem with the idea of doing it, though, if it's something that was feasible. I mean, I guess you would have to offer the expectation that everyone would be able to use the service, which would mean you're really actually looking at $48,000 a month. Brooke was waving her head over there. I thought you were nodding her head over there. So I guess the expectation, because we're offering it to, we couldn't just offer it to 40. We would have to make sure that the ability was there to service every single home. So the expectation, I guess, if we proceed with this, would be whatever that was. Now,
in addition
maybe
to pulling
Mr.
staff off of,
Yeah,
pulling
if you-
staff off of other arguments.
if you got in a situation where you had an emergency declaration, akin to what we had this last week, except within city limits, obviously you could then at that point say, we have an emergency. These people on this side of town have a bunch of brush that need to be chipped. These people over here are unscathed. You could do it that way. But if it's just a carte blanche, everybody bring your brush and trees and everything.
No, it's curbside. It's curbside.
Well,
yeah.
but I mean, bring it to the curbside is basically what I'm saying. Bring it up for collection, then it has to be offered across the board. I think Pigram's as needed basis was when, if I recall, if my memory serves me, when they passed that, that is for those various situations. You have an ice storm or you have, windstorm or something like that. They're on, the tree service is on call to come help clean it up. Obviously, that's gonna affect a limited number of people.
Which that's actually not a bad idea to have.
Right.
I know Dixon does do just carte blanche, everybody, just whatever, everybody can do it.
They have their own tree service and
Oh, they actually have their own municipal.
they have their own.
But that's a
leash and
staff
rate.
provided service,
Yes.
not a outside
It's
contracting
not
service.
contracted.
Well, I mean, I'm always open to finding out what the numbers are and looking into seeing what's going on in Pegram and Marshall, of course, you are the attorney in Pegram, so I guess that's what's going on in Pegram.
That's what's, I mean, I've slept since then, since they did all that, but they,
Yeah.
if I recall correctly, they bid it out, they got a price for the 2 days a year and then an add-on price of as needed on-call service.
Okay, so they have the 2 days a year though.
I think they did anticipate, I didn't know that they had set them at this point, but I do remember that coming across where they have that offering, so,
So
Which dates, I'm sorry?
I'm sorry.
You said you didn't know that?
I didn't know they had set the dates. I just remember them getting everything prepared.
Oh,
and- yeah.
September was the first one, September 16th of this past year.
okay, so I mean, it's kind of difficult to figure out. So I mean, I'm just curious because I mean, I like the idea of having the days to do it, maybe a couple of days a year to do it, but so presumably you're only going to do about 40 people in 2 days, though, right? So 80 people total are going to receive the service, and
He said like I said, 40 to 50.
40 to 50.
But if we have, 28 houses on Ridgecrest Drive and all the brush out, there's 20, he's knocking out 28 right there. He said it could probably be like 15 minutes a house.
Okay.
Is what he slated that he could do it in.
If you're gonna look at doing, we're going to do it on this day,
Mhm.
then you're not gonna be able to cover curbside pickup all over town and be inclusive of everyone. If you wanted to set up on this day, find a way to get your shrubbery to, or your tree limbs or whatever to X point, and we will have somebody there to shred it for you, then, you know, that's how you're gonna accomplish having a one-day service. Otherwise, you're gonna be locked into doing, you know, like
Multiple
Metro
days.
has, you know, this particular week, all the people in this ward
Routes.
have their stuff out, right?
And then Peter, I'm understanding, does have curbside.
Ingram has a lot of subdivision houses, just bam, bam, bam. They're not
Right.
quite spread out like they are here.
So is Pegram able to accomplish everything in one day? I guess that's the
I
question.
don't know the answer to that.
Okay. Because what I'm saying is like, what if, you know, I guess like where I'm getting at, it's like, everybody on my street drags out their brush and then, or down the block drags out their brush and then, 5 o'clock rolls around or 6 o'clock or whatever, it gets dark out, and then I've still just got my brush sitting out in the front yard. Are they gonna come back the next day to take care of that, or I just have my brush sitting out?
I
in the
think
front yard?
they're gonna know because they're gonna set up routes. Everybody is gonna have to call in 2 weeks before, a week ahead
Set it up.
on the proposal and set it up, so they're gonna have their routes set to go.
So if you had 2 days, I guess it would just be like the first 80 people that called in where they'd get it, and
Presumably.
then no one else would. Okay, that would that be equitable in
I mean,
tax dollars? I don't know.
Think about this, if you're a taxpayer that is not in the first 80 callers and your dime is being used to pay to shred up your neighbor's trees, I mean, that is inequitable.
No. Okay.
Well, I thought just depend on how many get signed up. You know, there may be, if we set this in motion, there may be only 40 people that sign up. Because they're gonna have to be home on that certain day, have it brushed out 2 days before and ready to go. And it's not gonna be like they're gonna be able to call and say, come to my house. It won't work that way.
But I think you need to anticipate having the option available where if all houses wanted to sign up, you've got to be able to accommodate all of that.
Okay.
We'll find out from Mr. Llewellyn and then how they do it. And like I
Yeah.
said, I think they're pretty much, like I said, same population as us.
Okay. Well, can we just maybe pull some more information? I'm sure you'll find some more information from John and Llewellyn. Sorry, not that John, and then maybe that John can do a little digging too. So, all right. Okay. We can move on to surplus. There is none, and for other for discussion only, I believe there is none. Other than the fact, I will always throw this out here. If you happen to be, I guess it's again reminders. Around town on January 1st, we're all going to be at the park and we're going to run a 5K at 9 o'clock in the morning on the first day of the year, first day 5K. Bob's leading this pack down. So just follow Bob. And you guys that's right. All right. City Hall will be closed December 17th for the staff luncheon, and City Hall will close December 24th. And Monday, December 27th for Christmas, and December 31st for New Year's Day. And now we actually need to,
I need a motion to go to attorney.
we need a motion to go to attorney-client, and so.
Motion to go to attorney-client.
A second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Nice having y'all in here.